So we'll now look at separation properties of topological spaces. To motivate this, recall we had the following proposition. Okay, so if F maps X to R, and this is going to be the domain more generally in here with X indiscrete, then and of course the important point is that this is continuous. Then F is constant. So remember how we proved this. We just took R here and we looked at a single point and X was closed. Its inverse image in this indiscrete space X was going to, let me call it Y, since this space is in the codomain. Its inverse image was closed, and so it had to be everything. Okay, and this does not work if Y is indiscrete. It's because any function from indiscrete spaces to indiscrete indiscrete from anything, in fact, to an indiscrete topology is continuous. So continuous tells us nothing at all if the target is indiscrete. Specifically, we don't have that a single point is closed. So this is really the kind of example you want to rule out with separation properties in two ways. First of all, we want the target to have enough separation properties that actually having a continuous function to it says something strong about the function. The continuity says it. Okay, so now inverse image of open sets of a target have to be open. If there are too few of them in some sense, and cardinality is not good enough to say enough, but if there are too few of them, if there are not enough of them, then the continuity doesn't say much. On the other hand, indiscrete topology is bad because it just admits too few functions, and we want to study topological spaces in terms of continuous functions. And specifically, we will want to study possible metrics on them and so on. And so we also want properties that will let us say that there are functions on that. Of course, one could postulate, but that's useless. I mean, then each time you would have to work. Instead, we want to characterize when you have real valued functions that are not just constants, that are sufficiently many. Okay, so these motivate it. So first of all, let's look at this and make our first definition. So definition, a space X is T1 if every point in X is closed. Okay, and the above proposition holds if I say Y with YT1. So you can see an immediate application. If F maps X to R, let me simply change it even here, or let me say it in another color, more generally Y with T1 space. So we see immediately that being a T1 space has consequences. Okay, so this is there, and of course the example is indiscrete topology. On X is not T1 unless in degenerate case. So as long as the cardinality of X is greater than or equal to 2. So as soon as you have at least 2 points, point is not closed because only the whole space is closed. On the other hand, an example which is T1 but barely T1 is the cofinite topology, because remember in the cofinite topology all finite sets are closed. So X with the cofinite topology is T1. Okay, it's T1 but it's barely T1, as we'll see, because what happens is that if you take two open sets on, if X was infinite, that is, if I take any two open sets, the first one excludes finitely many points, the second one excludes finitely many points. So between them they exclude only finitely many, so their intersection must be very large. This is in contrast to metric spaces. So that's the next property we will see. Okay, so we also see that metric spaces are T1. And the way in which we'll see this is actually, the reason I'm not proving it now is because we will upgrade, or we'll consider the next separation property T2, but I'll give it the name by which it's usually known, Hausdorff. T2 is also standard terminology, but this is so important that it has a special term, Hausdorff. So when Hausdorff first defined topological spaces, this was an assumption. That's why they're called Hausdorff spaces. I mean, he was the first one to define topological spaces, but the way he defined it included being T2. Okay, so T2 is if we have two different points. Well, in a metric space, you can find balls around them that are disjoint. In general, you axiomatize saying they're open sets that are disjoint. Okay, so a space X is T2 if given points, let's say PQ in X, such that P is not equal to Q. There exists UP, UQ open, such that P is in UP, Q is in UQ, and UP intersection UQ is empty. Okay, so the basic proposition here, which gives us the basic example, is a metric space is Hausdorff. And that you simply take balls. As this picture says, if they have small enough radius, more precisely, if P is not equal to Q in the metric space, okay, distance of PQ is greater than 0. Then we know this from, this is one of our basic axioms. Okay, so then distance between P and Q is greater than 0. So we take let UP is ball of around P of radius, distance of PQ by let's say 3, and same with UQ. Ball around Q of radius D of PQ and by 3, and by the triangle inequality these two will be disjoint. Okay, so this is the nice thing. So here's a second proposition, and then we'll come to the main reason why Hausdorff spaces are so nice, which is that limits are unique. In fact, there is a topological way also of saying it. Okay, so here we are. So metric spaces are. So second proposition is that a Hausdorff space, a T2 space is T1. Okay, so the point here is I have a point. I want to show that the point is closed. Okay, so given any other point, a T2 space, give it a name X. Let X be T2 and P belong to X. Then what we know is that given any point Q here, there's an open set. Then for all Q in X, P is not equal to Q, there exists UQ open such that Q belongs to UQ. And I'm not going to say there's a UP, we'll just take something weaker. Just notice that X does not belong to UQ. Okay, so hence little x, this space X single point, is the complement of union of Q is not equal to P. Of course, Q in X of Q is not equal to P of UQ. So the union of all these sets will cover all of Q and none of them will have X. And so this is open. These were all open. And so this is closed. So there are important non-Hausdorff topologies. The cofinite is a bit artificial, but ones coming from algebraic context, algebraic geometry, commutative algebra, and so on, number theory, are often not Hausdorff. But you see, then they have a whole set of substitute terms, like we will see compactness later, we have seen connectedness, but any of these literally translated to the algebraic geometry will give you the wrong concept. So you have a compactness gets replaced by something called proper, etc. So Hausdorff spaces are really what one wants to think of. And why? Well, to illustrate it would be a good excuse also to define convergence of sequences. We actually did it earlier, but so let's say suppose X is a topological space. And so suppose Xn sequence in X. Sequence in X. Okay. So as this is a sequence indexed by natural numbers as usual. So we say Xn converges to some point X, let's say X infinity, for X infinity in X, if we can do the usual thing with epsilon delta except with an open set around it. So given any open set around X infinity, we are eventually in that. If given U neighborhood of X infinity, that is open set containing in X infinity, there exists n in natural numbers such that if little n is greater than n, then Xn is in the neighborhood. This is just like the epsilon definition of convergence. Okay, so this happens. Now you see, if we had an indiscrete topology, there are no neighborhoods except the whole space. So as I remark, just to warn that bad things happen, if Xn is, if X has the indiscrete topology, and then every sequence converges, that by itself would not be so bad, but to every point. Okay. So here's an exercise. I'll say in words what happens. So what happens to the sequence n in natural numbers with cofinite topology? So neighborhood of a point k is an open set which excludes only finitely many points, and k is not one of the point that is excluded. So now if I have a sequence, well, it may enter the neighborhood, but it soon enough leaves. Okay, so I've given a hint as to answer. I can state the answer. It actually again still converges to every point. Not every sequence does, but sequences can converge to every point. So limit is not unique with not only in the indiscrete space, but in the general T1 space as well. But the key point about the Hausdorff definition is that if X is Hausdorff, and Xn converges to P comma Q in X, Xn converges to P and Xn converges to Q, then P equals Q. And the proof is exactly like uniqueness of limits that you would see in real numbers. So I have P and Q. Okay, I can find disjoint sets UP and UQ. And you're eventually in this, and hence you're in the intersection. If X is Hausdorff, Xn converges to P, namely, if P is not equal to Q, there exist neighborhoods UP of P and UQ of Q that are disjoint. Okay, and there exists NP and NQ such that n is greater than NP implies Xn belongs to UP, and n is greater than NQ implies Xn belongs to UQ. Hence X of, let me just put NP plus NQ plus 1 or something like that, belongs to UP intersection UQ. This is a contradiction. This is impossible because they are empty. So these neighborhoods are disjoint, this is empty, a contradiction. Okay, so we have defined convergence of sequences, and we saw limit need not be unique. So the limit is not a limit as we say. This can also be essentially the same proof tells you that if you have a set and a limit point of the set and you have a continuous function, it need not extend to the limit point, but the extension is unique. Or similarly, if we have dense sets, the extensions will be unique to the whole space if they exist. Okay, so sequences was just an example. We could introduce sequences which are interesting in their own right, but this was a good example of. So this is what says that being Hausdorff is very much necessary. Okay, we need more refinements of these because being Hausdorff, still you have some pathological examples where there are almost no real valued continuous functions on them. So that's why you have refinements called regular and normal spaces. But Hausdorff is something you more or less assume routinely in topology, at least when you're using it for geometric applications.